Hello and welcome to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grueling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive app that lets you call what you think the offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and then see what others around the country pick as well. That's Gridiron Mo. Go to gridironmo.com. I am Evan Witalison, joined as always by the amazing co-host that he is, Trial Trotovic, and now we get to talk playoff football. Playoff football is the topic today as the playoffs start on Saturday. Well, the Packers play Sunday, but the playoffs are starting, and the Green Bay Packers are taking on the Washington Redskins. If they would have won last Sunday, they would have been taking on the Minnesota Vikings again, but unfortunately the Packers fell to Minnesota 20-13. Before we get into that, I do want to let listeners know, I talked about it the last couple weeks. I am a fitness coach. I do it because I truly and passionately want to help people. That's why I do it. If you're someone that struggles with weight, that wants to make some life changes this year, then talk to me. I've lost over the past, since 2012 of this month, I've lost roughly 85 pounds, and I'm working on losing about 50 to 55 more, so I can feel healthier. And I want to help you do the same. I want to help you reach your goals, what you want to do. You know, fitness is hard. You know, losing weight and getting fit is hard. It's very hard. But it's doable. And if you have the right support, that's where I come in. You can do it, and I want to help you do it. So shoot me an email, coachevan66@gmail.com. That's coachevan66@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, and let's work on your New Year's goals that you put together at the beginning of the year, and let's work on those goals that you have. And before we talk a little bit about Packer Vikings and some concerns that I have and I want to bring up to Troy really quick, I'm going to throw over to Troy and let him introduce himself. How are we doing, Troy?
Doing good today. For those that don't know, Evan, I know you're on a health kick, but I'm a big water guy. I drink a lot of water. Tonight for the show, I'm actually drinking a Mountain Dew. Got to get all caffeined up to get all ramped up for this, because I want to be optimistic. I said it last night on the Red Light Sports Ramble. I want to be optimistic today heading into the playoffs, because I've said for the last 2 weeks, and it was kind of brought to a point last week. You had mentioned you thought the offense could come and show up on the last game, and I said, Evan, there's just nothing that's shown me over the past couple of weeks that they're going to do that. So I'm a little worked up on some caffeine tonight, just so you know, but I'll tell you, Evan, another beautiful day in the neighborhood. I can't believe it's January and the mild temperatures we're having. I mean, it's cold at night, but I mean, for January, it could be a lot more frigid. To me, it's like a late November day is what it feels like, so I can't complain during the day, especially with the sun out, and you can go out in a hoodie in the beginning of January. So it's beautiful in western PA. But, yes, it's NFL football playoff time. I know it's a brand-new season. The optimism is there, but there are some deficiencies, that we're going to talk about tonight. Now, and I'm not saying that the Packers don't have a chance to win. I'm just saying that there's some major deficiencies on this team, and we're going to talk about them tonight. We'll give our predictions at the end of the show. But it is playoff football, Evan, and can they turn the light switch on? I've made the analogy, the fuse is broken on offense. Can they bring in an electrician and get the fuse fixed? I don't know. Because there's some things that have to be fixed if they want to go to Washington and win. But, things are good out here. I'm ready to talk football tonight, so let's get started.
Yeah, now before we get into the game that's going to happen, very, very briefly want to touch on, and I want to get your take. I don't know if you had heard this yet today, but Mike McCarthy had his press conference today. And there were a couple things that he said that I'm a little concerned about. It gets me just a little concerned. It sounded like things might not be very good right now in Green Bay. And I know you're thinking, well, obviously they've lost the last 2 games. But Mike McCarthy at his press conference today had a couple things he had to say. There was a question, Josh Sitton, among other players, had been saying for weeks that Green Bay need to find a way to run the ball more. And Sitton said this week that Eddie Lacy and James Starks need to get 30-plus carries. Combined, not individually. That would be kind of crazy if they each had 30 carries. But anyways, so Mike McCarthy, a question he was asked, and that quote was brought up. He says, quote, well, first of all, Josh Sitton needs to play guard, and that's what he'll play this week. He'll play left guard. That's quote number 1 that he said. And then number 2, I'm trying to find the exact quote so I don't butcher it. Here's the quote. So I'll finish off the quote. As far as how many times you run it, how many times you pass it, in regards to the last game, we ran the ball in a particular personnel group. The first series was successful and went with the similar concept of a personnel group that we majored in preparation, and we didn't run the ball very well at all. So that's the facts of the matter. So how you go into games with the direction and which direction the game takes you, it happens usually every time you line up and play the game of football. So it's my job to call the plays, and it's the player's job to run the plays. So Mike McCarthy seems like he's getting a little testy at what appears to be guys criticizing him and criticizing his play calling, including his left guard, Josh Sitton. And this really concerns me, Troy, going into a playoff game. It really concerns me going into the playoff game because McCarthy's sounding like he's getting cranky about the players, and the players seem to be getting cranky, and just seems like a lot of drama going on in the locker room. How concerned are you going into the playoff game, but it's sounding like people and players and coaches are butting heads with one another?
Well, I want to put it this way. It's come to a forefront called frustration. I think everybody's frustrated and everybody's playing on edge. It's been that way. I mean, maybe this is that thing that we couldn't put our finger on why things are not clicking. Maybe there is some stuff going on there. The offensive line. I'll go back. The offensive line of Green Bay made me look like a pure idiot this year. As I said, they were one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and they haven't played up to that expectation. Now, I know they've had a lot of injuries, but, I had said that when they play well, when that 5 is healthy, they play very well. They haven't. Aaron Rodgers hasn't played well. The receivers haven't gotten open. There's a lot of frustration across the board in Green Bay. I think the only unit the unit that is carrying this team and keeping them in games is that defense. That defensive unit, things are going well. But offensively, it's frustration. Now, how much does it concern me? A little bit, if it's going to boil into a lot of animosity amongst people, frustration. Sometimes people say things, and I will say this, Evan. Being in the media, we're not Fox Sports, so we're not sitting down and talking to Josh Sitton. But even when we interview people, we'll ask questions looking for an answer, and not that we're trying to cause controversy, but we'll ask questions in a sense, and sometimes those players will answer with a true feeling and not really deflect the question to make it be politically correct, if that makes any sense to you. And when you're frustrated, those things come out because of your passion to win. So I'm not giving them a pass on it, and I'm not saying that this isn't a little bit of a concern, but this is a veteran offensive team, and they need to sit down, they need to figure it out. I believe it's just frustration, Evan. I don't think it is something that is of huge concern. I think Mike McCarthy is very frustrated looking at the way that this offense has performed. And I think he's taking it pretty hard, personally. And, that for the comeback, he's just voicing his frustration, voicing his frustration. I think it's a matter of frustration. I'm not going to say, well, if they lose the game, it's because there was, that animosity there. But I think it's just frustration on my side. What do you think?
I'm very, very concerned with the bickering. It seems to going back and forth. And I take it with a grain of salt because I don't know who his sources are, but Gary Ellison, former Packer running back, still has connections within the Packer organization. He was saying that players in the locker room are starting to grow tired of Aaron Rodgers' act. So Aaron Rodgers is starting to, I guess, apparently piss some people off. But I don't know if that's true or not. If it is true, Rodgers needs to figure out what's going on and fix it. He is the quarterback of the team, but he also needs to get along with this team. And again, I don't know if he is or he isn't, but it is very concerning that going into a playoff game, do or die, you win, you advance, you lose, you go home, that it seems like there's just so much disconnect, anger, hostility between players and coaches, players and players, coaches and players. It's just not what you want come playoff football. When things don't tend to go well, usually when things are going well, let me put it this way, when things are going well, you don't see the cracks below the surface. Last year, Packers had the number one ranked offense in the NFL. You didn't see the cracks below the surface because everything looked all hunky-dory until they lost to Seattle. Now that things aren't going well this year, you're starting to see the cracks below the surface. I guess is the best way I can say it. Now, the Packers lost to Minnesota, didn't win the division for the first time since 2011, and now the Packers need to go on the road. The only exception is if they play Seattle in the NFC Championship game, which how ironic would that be that 2 years in a row, the NFC Championship game, Seattle versus Green Bay, this time in Green Bay. But I have a hard time seeing that happening with the way the team is right now. They have a game against Washington, very winnable game. Washington has yet to beat a team with a winning record this year. They are very good at home. Kirk Cousins has played really well at home. And Gruden is basically, he's running an offense that plays to his players' strengths. And the offensive line blocking pretty good for him. Cousins is just playing outstanding football. And as I said, he's playing to his team's strengths. That's what he did as offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. Up until playoff time, he played to Andy Dalton's strengths. So now we'll see what Gruden does in the playoffs. Because in Cincinnati, when he was offensive coordinator, Andy Dalton didn't do very well in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But Washington's a team that's going to want to run the ball. Alfred Morris isn't necessarily the same back he was a couple years ago, but rookie Matt Jones has been really picking up the pace this season. And offensively, look at their rankings. Offensively, Washington gets 353 yards per game, 255 through the air, 97 on the ground. That's kind of dropped a little bit recently due to some injuries. They average 24 points per game, 43% on third downs, and 19 minutes and 4 seconds time of possession. Defensively, Washington's completely opposite of the offense. Defense not very good. 380 yards allowed per game, 258 through the air, 122 on the ground, allowed 23 points per game, and 37.7% on third down. Washington is hurting Troy big time in the secondary. Lots of injuries. Defensive line doesn't play the run very well. So the Packers pretty much have their choice to kind of pick the poisons on what kind of game plan they want to run. Me personally, I think it's got to be a run-heavy offense. I think that's the only thing that's going to work because the only wide receiver they have that can possibly win a one-on-one battle is Randall Cobb, and he never ever sees one-on-one battles anymore. None of the other receivers have proven that they can consistently win one-on-one coverages regardless of the secondary, but we'll see if they can do it against this banged-up secondary of Washington. Maybe they can. But offensively, like I said, it's got to be a run-heavy game. It's got to involve Lacy a lot. It's got to involve Stark, and that's how you get the O-line playing bad. You get them lathered up a little bit by running the ball. That first series in the Viking game, they ran the ball, I believe it was on 9 out of 11 plays. They get it towards the red zone. They decide to start throwing it. The 22 formation, they call it, where you got one wide receiver, 2 tight ends, a fullback, and a tailback. That formation is what they ran the majority of that first series, and things looked to be running pretty smooth. I don't remember them really going back to that formation the remainder of the game. I think you got to control the tempo, got to control the clock, and you got to put your defense in good positions. Something this offense has not done in quite a while. They got to put the defense in good position by winning the field position battles. You're not going to score every time you have the football, even when you're a super efficient offense. And this offense is the furthest as it can possibly go from being an efficient offense. They average just about 20 points per game. Last year they were between, I think, 32 to 34 points per game, kind of show you how much they've dropped. And no, it's not just because they've lost Jordy Nelson. It's a lot of things. But power running, play action, I agree with Sitton, get Lacy and Starks between 30 to 35 carries. I said this last week. I sound like a broken record, but at the end of this game, Aaron Rodgers has over 40 attempts. The Packers will lose this game if he has 40 attempts or more. So they got to run the ball. So, Troy, when you look at this offense playing against this Washington defense, it's not very good. They don't cover the pass well. They don't defend the run well. They give up a lot on third downs. When you look at this game, what do you see the Packers offense needing to do? And my fear with this game is that Mike McCarthy is going to look at how not so good this pass defense is with all the injuries, and he's going to decide to do a very pass-heavy offense. So what are your thoughts on what the Packers need to do offensively?
Well, it's what it's what I've said all year, Evan, and you brought it up. They need to win the time of possession battle and not turn the ball over. Aaron Rodgers uncharacteristically forcing things in the red zone. I believe he has 3 red zone interceptions this year. That's very un-Rodgers-like. You need to come away at least with 3 points. And I know people will go back and they'll say, well, you go back to that Seattle game and you kick the field goal, blah, blah. In the playoffs, you take points. You need points. You can't go into the red zone and come out with 0. 3 is better than 0. 7 is the best. But you need points in the red zone. So you can't turn the ball over in the red zone. That's going to be number 1. You cannot turn the ball over in the red zone. You got to finish those drives and get 7. But if you get in the red zone and sputter, you need to at least get 3 and not get 0. Those turnovers in the red zone are momentum changers for the other team. A team like Washington, a team that has not been in this position before. I'll say it this way, a surprising playoff team. And I'll get to it in a little bit on my analysis of Washington. But the way that you deflate Washington is you control the clock. And the way to control the clock is a good combination of run, pass. Now, I know they're banged up in the secondary, which is possibly good news for Packer receivers if they can get open. However, I've said this numerous times. Can Rodgers put the last 17 weeks behind him because that internal clock is ticking fast? It's wound up right now. And you and I have noticed this in games. Even when he's had time, he's had happy feet. He needs to put it behind him. Can he do it? I don't know. That needs to be fixed. If he has time, he's got to be Aaron Rodgers of old, where he'll dance around, roll out of the pocket, extend the play, and not be rushed. He looks very rushed, and part of that is the receivers need to come back to the ball. They need to keep playing. You mentioned it earlier in the week about the Viking game. Looked like a lot of lazy play from the wide receivers. So my point here, extending drives and maintaining the clock, a good balance of run-pass. Like you, if Rodgers throws for over 30 times, I think the Packers lose this game. But my number one point, don't turn the ball over in the red zone. Number two is win the time of possession battle by moving the chains. And whether it's Lacey, whether it's Starks, whether it's a short passing game, I want to see for the Packers to be efficient in the playoffs in the way that this team is built. It's not built to put 30 points on the board right now. It's built to put together 8 to 10-yard drives, and that's the way they have to approach it. Instead of saying, we're going to go for the big play, which they don't have, we've talked about it, they have no deep threat. They need to play a very much ball control style game and put together 8 to 12 play drives and finish the drives with points. And my last point, and then I'll hand it back over to you. What I'd like to see in this game, Evan, whether or not they complete any of them, I would like to see them go deep at least once every quarter to show the Redskins we're going to try to go deep when we have the opportunity. That way at least you can possibly pull the safety out of the box a little bit. Because if the Redskins can cheat the safety up in the box, it's going to make running the ball a lot harder. If the Packers at least try to go deep, but Abder's out there, run a fly pattern, throw it over his head if you want to, but at least show the Redskins, look, if we get the matchup, we're going to try to go deep on you. The best scenario, you complete a big gainer. Worst scenario, 2nd and 10 or 2nd and short, whatever it is. But it's one of those things, Evan. Teams know we don't have a deep threat, so they're not even honoring it. And I think in this game, at least if you try to show a couple plays that we're going to try to go deep, the Redskins will have to honor that, look, oh, my God, the Packers just tried to go deep. Then at least they're thinking. Because if you go back on film, Evan, when's the last time you saw a fly pattern out of this Green Bay offense?
They've tried a couple the past couple games, but it hasn't worked for the fact that Rodgers either overthrows them or doesn't give the receiver a chance to catch the football. There was one in Minnesota that stood out to me that he just, I think it was, I don't know if it was a free play, but he just threw it up to Jones. And if he would have put it more in the field of play, Jones could have caught it. But he gave Jones no room to catch the football. And the thing is, other than, Janis, none of the receivers really have the speed to run that fly pattern consistently. And there's no trust in Janis right now, so it's not part of their offense because they don't have the personnel that can do it, really. But looking at the time, we do have a commercial break we have to get to. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Packers' defense against this Kirk Cousins, you like that, led offense, and talk about what the Packers' defense needs to do to win this. So you're listening to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grilling Truth.
Hey, everybody, go check out a brand-new football app called Gridiron Mo. It's an app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all others around the country have also called. So make sure you check out Gridiron Mo app at www.gridironmo.com.
Welcome back to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grilling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive app that lets you call what you think the offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and then see what others around the country pick as well. That's Gridiron Mo. Go to gridironmo.com. So Troy and I were talking before the break, talking about some issues going on in the Packers locker room that they don't want to talk about, but you can clearly tell there's issues there. It's not that big of a secret. There's obviously issues there. And then we talked about the offense of the Packers against this Washington defense. And basically, I think we both agree, has to be a power running attack. Has to be either a balanced 50-50 or I would say 60-40 favoring the running game if they want to win this game. So now we got to look at the other side of the football when the Packers are on defense. So scheme-wise, Kurt, you like that Cousins as a quarterback, and they favor bunch groupings of receivers, a zone run game, play-action passing, and deep shots downfield. They don't really run that effectively, and they haven't since the starting running back, I forgot what his name was for a minute, the rookie, Matt Jones, who's been banged up with injury, has really fallen flat. But receiver-wise, Deshaun Jackson is a guy that can stretch the field. Jordan Reed is a tight end that is extremely talented. And Pierre Garçon and rookie Jamison Crowder make up the wide receiving core. This is an offense that can get upfield. They like to keep passing in. They like setting things up on play action. The fortunate thing with Washington not able to run the ball very well, the play action might not be a huge problem if the Packers are able to run. If the Packers are able to stop the run, and they have stopped the run pretty well the last couple weeks overall. Even in that debacle in Arizona, they ran the ball pretty well. But they got to stop the run. I mentioned offensively, they averaged 255 yards through the air. You got to make Washington one-dimensional. You got to get Kirk Cousins uncomfortable. Last year, Kirk Cousins was a guy that threw a lot of interceptions. He hasn't been doing that this year, I understand. But he's a guy that threw a lot of interceptions last year. But this year he's thrown for 4,100 yards, 29 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. And he's got a 101.6 quarterback rating. If you can get pressure on Cousins, you will force him to make mistakes. It's that simple. And you got to get pressure on him. The defensive front seven, when this team played Minnesota the first time, the defensive front seven was aggressive, attacking, and they made Teddy Bridgewater's life a living hell. They pressured him all day long, got 6 sacks, and he couldn't do nothing. Last week against the Vikings, yes, the Packers got some sacks, but they didn't get the consistent pressure they had the first time they played the Vikings. I've talked many times, as Troy has as well, getting the sacks out of their own is kind of an overrated stat unless they're getting a sack on a third down. But it's the pressure, the constant pressure of getting to the quarterback, rattling him, hitting him, not necessarily sacking him, but just hitting him, making him uncomfortable. That's when you're going to make them have a hard time. I think this Packers defense can and should shut down this Washington offense. Ultimately, it's going to come down to is can the Packers put some points on the board to help out this defense. But I don't see any reason why the Packers can't slow this team down. Call me a homer if you must, but other than Jordan Reed, the offense overall doesn't scare me too much. And the only reason why Jordan Reed scares me is because the Packers struggle covering tight ends. They always have. But you got to get pressure, and got to make Washington one-dimensional. They already kind of are. Misspoke earlier in the show. They pretty much already out one-dimensional, but they got to make them one-dimensional. So that's my thought. What is yours?
Well, I'm going to start, and I'm going to go this way, Evan. I know people in Packerland and even media are talking about Packers. You talked about the frustration coming out, the bickering. At the end of the day, Evan, I'm not sold on the Washington Redskins, and here's why. Yeah, they're in the playoffs. But I want anyone to go take a look at their schedule. I want you to take a look at who they have beaten this year. And I'm going to go through to have it up. Here's their wins, Evan. They beat the Rams. They beat the Eagles. They beat the Buccaneers. They beat the Saints, they beat the Giants, they beat the Bears, they beat the Bills, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. This is a team that, when you're looking at quality wins, I'm not seeing many on their schedule. And I'm looking at an overall schedule where they really didn't play anybody. I mean, even their losses, they lost to the Dolphins, they lost to the Giants, the Falcons, the Jets. They lost to the Patriots, and there's a team. They lost to the Panthers. There's a playoff team. They lost to the Cowboys. So I know they've won 4 in a row to end the season, but their wins are over the Bears, Bills, Eagles, and Cowboys. Now, granted, you have to go and you have to play and you win. They did enough to get in the playoffs. But then you switch over to defensive statistics. The Washington Redskins, Evan, have the 28th ranked defense in the NFL. 28th defense against the strength of schedule that I think is pretty piss poor, which means that the Packers can somehow get a little voltage into the fuse, not even replace the whole fuse that is wrong. They should be able to score some points on this Washington Redskin defense. They give up a lot of yards, 380 per game, which goes back to what I said in the beginning, why I think it's a key to this game. Keep that defense on the field. It's not a very good defense. They give up a lot of yards, but you've got to finish drives and not turn the ball over. If you can stay on the field, get points, not turn the ball over, you should be able to move the chains consistently. However, offensively, like you said, they can't get pass happy. There has to be a balance. Can't turn the ball over. The receivers got to get open, and they got to run the ball. If they can do those things, I like the chances against this defense. And like you said, offensively, it doesn't scare me. And our defense against the Redskins offense, I give the advantage to the Packer defense 9 times out of 10. Now, is Sunday going to be the one time where they actually get beat? I don't think so. I like the way this defense is playing. This defense, Evan, like I said earlier in the show, has kept this Packer team in position all but 2 games. All but 2 games. And when you look at those 2 games, you can't even point the finger and say the defense played like crap because the offense didn't do anything and put them in bad situations. I like the way that this defense is playing. I have not been this complimentary of our defense in many, many years. The statistics may not be there, and all of those Clay Matthews sack totals may be down and his tackles may be down, but as a collective unit, I like the way that this 2015 Packer defense has played throughout the year. And I tip my hat to Dom Capers for doing a hell of a job with that defensive unit. It's the offense in my mind right now, Evan, that needs to get it fixed. So with that said, that means the defense is probably going to lay an egg on Sunday now that I've complimented them like I did the offensive line earlier in the year. But when I look at this team, Evan, defensively, the Packers offense should be able to do what they want to do as long as they have a very quality game plan to do it. That's my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I wish I had a quick, easy answer in regards to this team overall, on why they struggle on offense and all that. I really wish I knew. Now, in 2010, the Packers went from the 6th seed, made a big run, won the Super Bowl. We all remember that. Let's not compare this team to 2010. In 2010, things fell right. The defense, they had Nick Collins, they had Cullen Jenkins, they had Desmond Bishop on defense, Charles Woodson, Ryan Pickett. They had guys on the defense, and we're prepping up the defense nonstop just now, but they had those type of guys on the defense. On offense, now Jordy Nelson didn't really have his breakout game till the Super Bowl, but they had Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Nelson, Jones. Andrew Corliss was starting to come into his own. Things clicked at the right time for that team. Don't compare the 2 teams. This is a completely different team, and to me, this is Packer fans hoping, myself included, but Packer fans hoping that things just click at the right time. Well, right now, losing 2 games in a row, one a complete destruction at the hands of Arizona, to me, that's not really clicking at the right time. Now, Packer fans, take the playoffs as it is, 1 game at a time. If the Packers win, awesome, they move on. If they win, they move on. It's that simple. If they don't win, I don't want fans wanting to jump off the roof, wanting heads to roll, because this is a shell of the Packers team that we've, other than 2013 for obvious reasons, with Rodgers' injury, this team's a former shell of itself. This is nowhere close to 2010. Now, McCarthy's hinted at it. Rodgers has hinted at it. Playoff time, they're going to be able to flip that switch and go. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. You don't just flip the switch and go on, once the playoffs start. Maybe they will, and maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Back to the game with Washington. This is a game I truly believe Green Bay should win. I am going to regrettably pick them to win again because they haven't won for quite a while when I picked them to win. I think Dallas is the last time. The Oakland, I predicted them to win. But my predictions have not been very good this year. I'll put it that way. This will be a low-scoring game. This will be a very low-scoring game. I say if the Packers can somehow score 20 points, if they can find a way to score 20 to 21 points in this game, the Packers should win. The way the defense has been playing, bend don't break, holding teams to field goals, and not getting turnovers at the right time, putting them in position to win for quite a while, other than the Arizona game during their cold spell. I think the Packers do win. I'm not going to be overly excited about the win, as I said. I'd be happy they won, but I see this being like a 20-17 game. I think Crosby at the end nails a field goal to send the Packers to the divisional round, or either a matchup against Carolina or Arizona. And it all depends on what the Vikings and Seattle do. Because if Seattle wins, the winner of this, the Packers, if they win, would play the 2 seed, so Carolina, and Seattle will play. Green Bay will play Arizona, the 2 seed, and Seattle will play the 1 seed in Carolina. Minnesota wins, Green Bay goes to Carolina, and Minnesota goes to Arizona. But we'll see what happens. I hope Green Bay wins. I hope they do, and I think they will, like I said, 20-17. But stop comparing the 2015 Green Bay Packers to what they did 5 years ago. That's the one thing I do ask. You're going to be very disappointed if that's what you're grasping at as why this team's going to win. So what are your thoughts on the outcome? What are your predictions?
Well, I had mentioned, and I brought the stat up. When I look at it, I'm not sold on the Washington Redskins. They played in a very poor division, a division that had the Cowboys alive in the playoffs, 4 games under 500 at one point. That division and those divisional opponents. Again, you never apologize for a win, but when you look at getting ready and playing playoff football, I mentioned the 2 losses they had to playoff teams, Carolina and New England, and not a lot of quality wins on their resume. Now, I know people can debate and say, well, look at the Packers schedule, and I'd say, okay, you got me there. But this is a game that, in my mind, Devin, when you break it down position by position, talent by talent, Kirk Cousins having a great year. But again, I have to look at the competition. I really do. At the end of the day, when I'm sitting here and I'm researching for this show, like I do with every week, and I'm not being a Packer homer, that's the thing that has been sticking in my mind is the strength of schedule for Washington. It sucks. I believe it's like the 24th ranked strength of schedule, And so that's why I dug into it deeper to actually look at the wins and losses. And none of the wins impressed me. And when you're looking at a 28th ranked defense against that schedule, that to me is a recipe for success for Green Bay. You're saying it's going to be close. I think, Evan, this team at time has shown me that they can move the ball and they can put points on the board. I know they haven't done it in a while. And I know you said you think that offense can come out of the funk against Minnesota. I'm not saying they come out of the funk, but I think they have enough juice to overcome Washington in Washington, partly because Washington hasn't been there. They're an inexperienced playoff team, and I know there's bickering in the Packer camp, but it is a veteran playoff team, a team that has been there before. Hopefully they get their heads on straight in the next couple of days and realize it's playoff football. We have a great opportunity here. Even though we played like crap over the last quarter of the season, last half of the season, it doesn't matter right now. There's 5 other teams in the NFC that we have to battle with to get to the Super Bowl. And talent-wise, when you look at it, I'll give the edge offensive line to the Redskins. The quarterback play, I'll still give the edge to Aaron Rodgers. Receiver play, maybe a push right now, but defensively, I give a huge advantage to Green Bay. I think they can pressure Kirk Cousins. I think they can stop the run game. And I think the offense does enough to move the chains, to control the clock. And I think the Packers, Evan, actually win by double digits. I think they win 27-17. And I think you would say Mason Crosby nails it to win. I think Crosby nails a field goal late, middle of the fourth quarter that puts the Packers up and gives them a little bit of breathing room. So I'm saying 27-17 Green Bay. They advance in the NFC playoffs. That doesn't mean that I'm proclaiming Super Bowl. What I'm saying is they've drawn a good opponent in the first round of the NFC playoffs, a team that they should beat.
Yeah, and they should be Washington. And if they can get a defensive touchdown or force a turnover that puts them in really good field position, I think they could score more than 20 points. But I don't know if they could score more than 20 points if they don't get the help by a turnover. I don't. But either way, we're both taking a win. We'll find out Sunday who advances and who moves on. I want to thank you all for listening to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grueling Truth. Thank you all for listening, for those that have listened to each and every one of our shows. Really greatly do appreciate it. Thank you for spending time with us talking football. I've enjoyed the show just like I enjoy doing the Red Light Sports Rambo with Troy each and every night. That you can listen to us. Go to the redlightsportsnetwork.com, the redlightsportsnetwork.com, to check out some of our stuff that we've done with through there. And also, I brought up my fitness at the beginning of the show. Have a blog on there, an article on there talking about my fitness journey. Check it out. Let's just check it out and see my story. And if it inspires you to, want to do something about your predicament, I'm going to be happy. If it inspires you to contact me and reach out to me and want to talk to me about it, I'm going to be even more happier. I'm just going to be happy that you're looking to better yourself. I want to help you with it. I want to work with you on it. But I'm just going to be happy the fact that you want to better yourself. But reach out to me, Coach Evan 66@gmail.com. With that said, for Troy Otronovic, I am Evan Witallison, and you have been listening to the Green Bay Packers edition of The Grueling Truth.